with most of their back catalog freshly reissued for 2024. Some of those albums out of print for 40 years since their original release, highly sought after and expensive to procure secondhand copies of. And having previously done in-depth videos on producer Adrian Sherwood and Prince Farai himself, two individuals the group would be inextricably linked with, it seemed the time was right for me to take a look at seminal UK reggae group Creation Rebel, formed to create dub with a difference. Stay tuned for my look at Creation Rebel. Young white English reggae fan Adrian Sherwood, still only in his late teens in the late 1970s, had progressed from spinning reggae records in clubs to selling them to becoming a junior partner in a label called Carib Gems, set up to release Jamaican records in the UK for the local audience. It was in this capacity that he recommended the debut album by Prince Farai, Psalms for I, be released in the UK on Carib Gems. This would lead to a sequence of events which saw Sherwood and Prince Farai meet face-to-face at the counter of a record shop in Birmingham, England called Tip Top Records. Prince Farai then visiting the UK on his first set of concert dates over there. The two quickly struck up a fast friendship, and as their paths became ever more intertwined on personal, creative, and business levels, Adrian would get involved with the release of Prince Farai's Message from the King LP, which saw him signed to major label Virgin Records. Farai would continually encourage his younger friend to get more and more involved in music, get more hands-on. Finally, in 1977, Adrian would take out a bank loan and go into partnership with a good pal of his named Peter Stroud, aka Dr. Pablo, in homage to the Jamaican melodica player Augustus Pablo, and the two would form a new label of their own called Hit Run, again with a mandate of releasing Jamaican records in the UK. And to help get Hit Run started, Prince Farai would give Adrian Sherwood some of his own productions back in Jamaica to release in the UK. The first one to see release on Hit Run would be Carol Calfett's African Land, Hit Run 12-inch. It's a reissue from a few years ago. The very first release on Adrian Sherwood's Hit Run label, circa 1977. However, the first LP to see release on Hit Run would be by a new group called Creation Rebel, with Dub from Creation, released in March 1978. The name taken in homage to the Burning Spear song Creation Rebel, appearing on his debut LP from Studio One, Creation Rebel itself. That had also been used as the name for a short-lived label Adrian had set up. He released an album by the DJ Ja Woosh called Marijuana World Tour on it in 1977. It would even have a similar logo to the Creation Rebel album. However, the actual origins of Creation Rebel were kept intentionally somewhat mysterious. Reggae recorded in the UK having a bit of an uphill climb to reach an audience at that time. Reggae from Jamaica seen as more authentic. That recorded in Jamaica having somewhat of a stigma attached to it, which lingers in some older fans to this day. I've seen veteran soundman say that the real reggae comes from Jamaica. And Adrian's intention, while every bit a devout reggae and dub fan, his intention was to push the parameters, experiment, get ever more wilder with the mixes, see what could be done to expand the boundaries and the parameters of the genre. to create his very first production credit with his very first recording sessions run by himself. He would pull together some musicians lifted from Prince Farai's backing band, the Arabs, that had backed him up on those very first concert dates in the UK. These would include drummer Eric Fish Clark, older brother of popular reggae singer Johnny Clark, as well as Clifton Bigga Morrison on keys, who had also played with the Arabs on some of those UK dates. They would be joined by a calypso bass player from Adrian's hometown of High Wycombe, Clinton Jack, with Pete Stroud, Dr. Pablo, co-owner of Hit Run Records, adding melodica and percussion. And joining on guitar would be Clifton Morrison's cousin, guitar player Antonio Tony Phillips, in his very first professional recording sessions, beginning a career that continues to this day. Originally, engineer Dennis Bovell was just going to play guitar himself, Sherwood intervening and asking that young Tony Phillips be given a chance, and Tony, picking up the nickname Crucial Tony due to his serious, no-nonsense attitude, would become a mainstay of the band that would eventually become Creation Rebel. The album, dubbed From Creation, with a quite psychedelic looking cover featuring a Arabian type city, Baby-O, Baby in Utero on there, would finally be released in March 1978. The first LP released on Hit Run Records, later released on onusound, re-released on onusound, Adrian's most well-known label, not yet formed yet, but Creation Rebel would actually set the foundations for everything that was to come, the experimentalism, the mixing and matching of players and genres. This would feature the title track, dubbed from Creation itself, which would be voiced over by Prince Farai as Frontline Speech. Prince Farai would release that as a 7-inch single in Jamaica on his own Cry Tough label, and it would belatedly appear as the lead-off track on Health and Strength, a lost album re-released by Pressure Sounds. Frontline Speech, Prince Farai there celebrating his place on the roster of Virgin's Frontline label dedicated to reggae. In a bit of a quirk of Adrian Sherwood, Rebel Rouser would have something of a rockabilly twang to it, perhaps homaging guitar heroes like Dwayne Eddy from America. And as side one, featuring all original tracks, what Sherwood called designer dub. While not a musician himself, he would hum the bass lines to bass player Clinton Jack to give the musicians an idea what he wanted to hear. And side two's tracks would also share rhythms with a solo album by Fish Clark, who doubled as a singer himself, which would be released as Love That Grows and Grows. Very scarce LP, not produced by Adrian, though he did write the liner notes for the back sleeve. First album by Creation Rebel, though when it first appeared, there was no studios listed. It was recorded at Gooseberry Studios with Dennis Bovell mixing, and also at Chalk Farm Studios with the engineer Sid Bucknor in place. Again, willfully trying to obscure its UK origins. Made on a recording budget of £200 and released in March 1978 as the first LP on Hit Run Records. Dub from Creation, seen here on a 2018 reissue, would be well received on the UK reggae market at the time, with tracks played by influential DJ John Peel on his BBC Radio 1 program, leading to an appearance by Creation Rebel, backing up Prince Far-I on a Peel session later that year, summer of 1978. The need for Creation Rebel to evolve into a live act capable of backing up Prince Far-I and other visiting Jamaican performers meant the group's parameters and lineup had to evolve and expand with the new demands on their time. Immediately after those Dub from Creation sessions, the band would begin work on a series of rhythm tracks in connection with an obscure DJ by the name of DJ Superstar, with bass provided by Tony Henry from UK reggae band Misty in Roots. However, those tracks were left unfinished at the time. Adrian not happy with the drum sound. Instead, what would take shape as the band's second studio album, released in 1979 as the fourth LP on Hit Run Records, would be Rebel Vibrations, here with a sleeve done by Tony Nero. This saw Keith Lizard Logan, a friend of Crucial Tony's, joined the lineup on bass, seeing Crucial Tony and Big Morrison stay on along with Dr. Pablo. But on drums would be a young drummer who had recently gotten out of the Jamaican military, still relatively unknown on the reggae scene. He had been brought over to the UK on Prince Far-I's recommendation. His name was Lincoln Valentine Style Scott. As part of the Roots Radix band in Jamaica, he would become the most in-demand session drummer of the early 1980s, turning the reggae world around with a prolific series of recordings in those years. But at this particular point in time, he was still largely unknown. He came to the UK, did some overdubs on those unfinished rhythm tracks, which would later take shape as perhaps Creation Rebel's magnum opus and most experimental offering of their career, but those still not released at the time. He would also lay down the drum parts for Rebel Vibrations and its follow-up LP, the two somewhat rhythmically interconnected and both released in 1979. He would also back up Creation Rebel as they embarked on the Roots Encounter Tour of 1979, organized by Adrian Sherwood, using imported Jamaican artists like Prince Far-I, Prince Hammer, Ja Woosh, and Bim Sherman. Creation Rebel, the backing band for all those artists, as they began to coalesce into a cohesive unit of their own with their own identity. However, the night before the band was to play the Rainbow in London, Style Scott ended up in hospital in Glasgow, Scotland with a burst appendix, had to return to Jamaica, cutting short his time with Adrian Sherwood. However, he would return to the UK on a break from the Roots Radix band and become the drum linchpin of a later unit, perhaps one of Adrian Sherwood's most successful acts, Dub Syndicate, once Adrian Sherwood had formed onusound. But in the meantime, the band would experience something of a revolving door of members. Their third album, released in 1979, was Close Encounters of the Third World, with a title referencing the Steven Spielberg film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This would find, again, drums by Style Scott, Ranking Mr. Magoo added on percussion, Lizard, Crucial Tony, and Dr. Pablo all remaining, with Desmond Fat Fingers Coke stepping in on organ. Close Encounters of the Third Kind would have something of a convoluted genesis, with basic tracks recorded between the UK and Jamaica, where Crucial Tony did some overdubs and did some voicing, the group adding vocals to this album done by either Crucial Tony or Lizard Logan, breaking out of the strictly dub format. And the album was mixed in the UK by a visiting Prince Jammy. Again, 2024 brand new reissue scene here, first time repressed on vinyl. And the lineup of the band here, with Style Scott visiting from Jamaica, Crucial Tony, Fat Fingers, Dr. Pablo, and Lizard Logan on organ. By 1980, Hit Run Records had run its course. For the remainder of Creation Rebels' output, Adrian Sherwood would turn to shorter-lived liaisons with a variety of other labels. First up was 4D Rhythms, label he had conceived in conjunction with a pal of his, Chris Garland, as part booking agency to promote acts like Dexy's Midnight Runners. For their sole LP release, to get a physical product in the shops, out on the streets, he would turn to that unfinished set of tracks that Creation Rebel had begun work on right after completing Dub from Creation, with original drums laid down by Charlie Eskimo Fox and later overdubbed by Style Scott, but left unfinished after that. With something of a film soundtrack in mind, with some talk of Don Letts directing a Dread-themed sci-fi opus to be called Starship Africa. Adrian Sherwood and Chris Garland repaired to the studio to give those tracks a final mix down. Before they started, Chris Garland recalled that both of them dropped a tab of acid in order to give full reign to their creativity at the mixing desk. This would be conceived as something of a soundtrack, with each side forming a long, entirely instrumental dub suite, though the tracks are broken up into different sections on the vinyl. This would take form as Starship Africa, Creation Rebels' magnum opus, their most experimental LP, their fourth chronologically, though actually their second, as the tracks were originated right after Dub from Creation. And this carried the mysterious commentary soundtrack from the forthcoming motion picture. Adrian, the film fan, with some talk of there being a Rastafarian dread reggae-fueled sci-fi film to have been directed by Don Letts, never did appear, but this could easily have been its soundtrack, intended to sound like a spaceship traveling through the cosmos. For this, Adrian Sherwood would play the master tapes backwards, add echo and reverb seemingly at random for an unsettling and jarring ride through outer space. This would be perhaps the group's most famous offering, their biggest selling LP of their career. Again, 2024 reissue, though it has been reissued in the years since. Original release 1980 on the short-lived 4D Rhythms label. Creation Rebel, Starship Africa. Following 1980's wildly experimental Starship Africa LP, which Adrian Sherwood and Chris Garland had mixed into a ambient, sweet-like, psychedelic, potential science fiction and reggae-themed soundtrack. Creation Rebel would continue to perform live as far afield as Germany and Holland, and would return in 1981 with their next LP, which would pick up thematically where Close Encounters of the Third World had left off, establishing a balance of vocals done by either Crucial Tony or Lizard Logan and matching dubs. Psychedelic John Canoe would appear in 1981 on Static Records. This again is from the 2024 reissue series. This would find Eskimo Fox returning to the drum kit following the departure of Style Scott, and would see Bonjo I add percussion and chanting to lead off track The Dope. Bonjo I would later become leader of African Head Charge, another Adrian Sherwood affiliated act, and Mother Don't Cry would also feature vocals by one John Lydon, former Sex Pistol, currently in Public Image Limited. Another very consistent album from Creation Rebel, recorded at Berry Street Studio, with a link to Richard Branson's Virgin Records, affording the opportunity. Psychedelic John Canoe. John Canoe is a Jamaican folk tradition going back to colonial times. The name is literally an Africanization of John Canoe, a folk dance and cultural tradition. See also John Canoe Dub by the Revolutionaries, the Jamaican band. Adrian Sherwood would have been aware of all this. The psychedelic John Canoe album appeared on Static Records, but 1981 would see Adrian Sherwood finally form the label he's most associated with, Onusound. The very first release on Onusound would be a 7-inch single from a new group called New Age Steppers, covering Junior Biles' Fade Away, with another group, London Underground, on the flip. 7-inch single, Onusound 1, very first release, ground zero of the label, though in many ways Creation Rebel had laid the foundations of everything that was to come. The next Creation Rebel LP, also appearing in 1981, would not be on Onusound itself, but would appear through Cherry Red Records in the UK. Adrian Sherwood, still under some financial pressure, needing to get product out on the streets to generate some revenue. The final two Creation Rebel LPs released on Cherry Red Records, not part of the current reissue series. I believe Cherry Red still owns the rights to them. First up, also appearing in 1981, would be a split LP with Creation Rebel and the New Age Steppers, strictly dub LP called Threat to Creation, original release 1981 on Cherry Red. This is a 2014 reissue from Anthology Recordings. Very tense dub structures here. Adrian Sherwood continuing to experiment with mood, with atmosphere. If Starship Africa had a science fiction theme. This one might be termed horror due to the geopolitical nature of the cover art, the titles, chemical specialist, threat to creation, eugenic device, very much geopolitical conditions, the threat of imminent destruction in mind, and the title would be lifted from the dub version to Chatty Mouth on the psychedelic John Canoe album, Threat to Creation, giving a title to that split LP with New Age Steppers. As the onusound collective began to expand, Adrian Sherwood, interested in setting up a variety of groups with distinct identities, but with enough of a loose enough structure that members could come and go, contribute to other projects as needs desired. New Age Steppers itself would see their debut LP appear with contributions from George Oban of Aswad, Crucial Tony himself from Creation Rebel, as well as Style Scott, and Airy Up, of course, becoming a mainstay of New Age Steppers. A further act, singers and players, would include Lizard, Style Scott, Eskimo Fox on drums, Crucial Tony, Bigga Morrison on keyboards, all Creation Rebel members, and African Head Charge, again featuring the extended Creation Rebel family, the onusound collective taking shape with Lizard on bass, Dr. Pablo on melodica, founding member of Creation Rebel, Crucial Tony on guitar, Deadly Headley on saxophone, who had also contributed to psychedelic John Canoe. The final, what would turn out to be the final Creation Rebel album, Lows and Highs, would appear in 1982, somewhat more accessible. That's the only one I don't have on vinyl, though it has been reissued recently by Lantern Recordings, but it's included in the box set from Hot Milk Records under the auspices of Cherry Red. Dread Operator includes both Threat to Creation and Creation Rebel, Lows and Highs. This again would find the band doing a mix of vocals and matching dubs with covers of Jamaican classics like Bob Andy's Unchained, retitled Independent Man, and John Holt's Love I Can Feel, with No Peace being a particular favorite of mine, and the band growing to perhaps its largest lineup yet, with the additions of Bonjo I, Style Scott coming through again, Deadly Headley, Carlton Bubblers Ogilvy. However, as it turned out, Lows and Highs, the biggest budget Creation Rebel LP to date, would be their final one, as Lizard Logan was jailed on drugs charges, and in 1983, the sudden murder of Prince Farai in Jamaica sent a shockwave through the entire onusound organization. Adrian Sherwood, particularly shaken, grieving his longtime friend and mentor, bitter and angry at what had been done to him. And for a time, the onusound productions would move away from reggae itself, would downplay that association in the wake of Prince Farai's murder. Meanwhile, the members of Creation Rebel would disperse, contribute to various other onusound projects over the years. Crucial Tony also being a longtime member of the Undivided Roots Band, as well as Rough Cut, backing up many visiting artists from Jamaica, recording on their own. However, the story of Creation Rebel was not quite done yet. Finally, after 40 years of dormancy for Creation Rebel, came 2023's surprise reunion album, Hostile Environment, reuniting three of the core members, Crucial Tony, Mr. Magoo, and Eskimo Fox, with a inner poster commemorating the late Keith Lizard Logan, and resurrecting the voice of Prince Farai, sampled on a couple of the tracks, vocals by a variety of contributors. This would be another of Adrian Sherwood's legacy projects of recent years, going back and doing new works with past collaborators from his rich history, especially in regards to reggae music. And the title, Hostile Environment, a pointed refutation of the systemic discrimination the band members, as British citizens of Caribbean heritage, have faced within the UK, or as Adrian Sherwood himself writes on the back cover, the album title is the term that UK Prime Minister Theresa May used to describe creating a hostile environment for people seeking refuge and asylum. One of the backdrops to the shocking Windrush scandal that has affected so many Caribbean families who have lived and worked in the UK their entire lives. The Windrush, the ship that brought the initial wave of Jamaican immigrants to Great Britain in the 1950s, the so-called Windrush generation, of which the members of Creation Rebel were also part of. A pointed refutation of some of the systemic discrimination they have faced over the years. Stonebridge Warrior, commemorating a council estate in the UK. Surprise reunion project from Creation Rebel, finding them bringing their sound fully up to date with a more modern production aesthetic, a wider range of contributors, but essentially unchanged. And this came on yellow vinyl. What the future holds for Creation Rebel, who knows? Hope you have enjoyed this look at one of the most unique UK dub and reggae bands. Thanks for watching, everyone.